All right, welcome back. You know, if it wasn't for AM radio, I'm not sure conservative America would ever get the true story about what's really going on out there. If you remember correctly, the Biden administration tried to get rid of AM radio on all new cars, but thankfully that failed. And if you have any money in the stock market and you're listening to the mainstream media in the beginning of April, well, you would have thought it was 1929 all over again, right? The market was crashing. People were selling their children, and the unemployment rate was 25%, or at least that's what they wanted you to believe. But by the end of April, the market was only fractionally lower than it was when it started the month. The comeback was one for the ages. But did you hear one word about it in mainstream media? I bet not. The mainstream media seems to revel in the lower markets because I think that they think it hurts Trump. Never mind everybody else that might have money in the market. Now, my next guest will have something to say about this, I'm sure. Please welcome to the show, Ms. Rebecca Walser. Rebecca, thanks for coming on. I didn't see one story. You know who brought it to my attention was Scott Bessent, but I didn't see one story, and I looked about this roaring market that came back. I mean, you could probably find it on CNBC or Fox Business if you looked on those websites, but nobody was talking about it on the mainstream channels, and we're doing pretty well. If you would have, put your head in the sand, it would have been just fine.
I mean, this last 9-day trading streak was one of the best ever for the S&P 500. So The fact that the mainstream actually didn't state it, you're absolutely right. Of course, the business channels, obviously, Scott, are going to, because they're going to, speak to the upside because they want the Fed to feel comfortable to make cuts. There's no chance we're getting cuts this week. The May, we really believe June would be the first. And actually now with some of the things that are happening, it could get pushed. Let's see. But to your point about the media, it seems like when we had negative information under the Biden administration, I know I've mentioned this so many times, but it's the example that everyone really resonates with and can think of, is that we knew we had inflation. You can't print the equivalent of 10 trillion US dollars between fiscal and monetary policy and then say that inflation is transitory for 18 months before you finally raise rates and then raise them the fastest we've ever seen to create such problems in the bond world that, it was a disaster. 2022 into 2023 rate raises very fast, very abrupt, very detrimental to the bond market. Just think of 2022. So it is frustrating that there was such a pass given on the jobs numbers, on the restatements. We had the largest amount of restatements under the last administration. Before that, it was the great GFC in 2008, 2009. So there's a lot of data that feels like the market tries to, or the mainstream tries to help if it's a Democratic administration and if it's a Republican administration, or maybe if it's just the Trump administration. Maybe it's just Trump. Maybe it's not even a Republican administration. Maybe it's just him. There is nothing that they want to do to help him. This is why the Fed isn't going to step in now. There certainly could be data points to justify them stepping in now and cutting rates for liquidity purposes alone globally, but they're not going to do it, Scott. They're going to wait till at least next month. And it depends. If we get more good economic data, if Trump starts getting these deals and things start going, they might even wait till September.
Yeah, to me, it's mind-boggling that it does feel like it's almost punitive. They revel in the punishment. And a great way to explain that to everybody is just when Tim Walz, about 3 weeks ago, when things were really bad, April the 8th-ish, and he was mentioning that he put on Tesla on his phone so he could watch the stock price tank. Now, there's so many reasons why that's wrong. But there are a lot of folks in his state that work for the government that have Tesla in their retirement plans. But to hope that an American company that makes a car goes down in value so that can hurt the sitting president, to me, is mind-boggling. And then when you take a look at the fact that, remember, it wasn't that long ago that they tried to get AM radio out of all cars, all new cars. And AM radio is largely conservative. It's one of the only places that conservatives get their news, especially in rural America. And to try to get that out of the car, it was not for any sort of scientific or technological reason. That was, again, purely punitive. Why is it? I think it is just Trump, not as much the Republicans, but I do think they hate Trump extra special. But the only thing that they do forget about, Rebecca, is the fact that there's only one thing more than people. There's one thing more that people like than hating Donald Trump, and that's making money. So when they drive that stock market down, a lot of people jump in and buy it, and then they made some good money.
You're bringing up a great point, Scott. I am sitting here racking my brain. I can't think of a Republican politician or administration that has ever said that they put a stock on their ticker symbol on their phone that they can watch so they can enjoy and revel in it going down. You're right. That is disgusting. And it is so sad that just because Elon Musk is making a contribution of his intelligence towards getting our fiscal house in the United States in order, the fact that people are so anti-Tesla, when really he's just trying to find waste, fraud, and abuse. Like, you're that anti-Tesla for someone trying to find waste. And look at how much they have found. So it's so sad. And to your point on the AM radios, you know, the fact that they have tried so many things, Scott, they tried to get rid of AM radios. So George Soros and his cohorts have bought up a substantial amount of the AM radio stations in this country for that reason, because it couldn't get rid of it. Net neutrality, obviously, that is a whole nother way they try to regulate the internet. And all of these things are designed and intended with one goal in mind, which is to control the truth, control the narrative, and to sway people into believing there's nothing wrong here. Don't look over here where everything's going on. Look at this fruitless little bird over here. Let's distract you with this. Let's distract you with that. And it's sad that we have to, wade ourselves through so much subterfuge from every political group in the world to get to the truth. And the truth really, like to your point, AM radio, podcasts now, I think, are taking over mainstream media absolutely as the go-to source for reliable, truthful information. And so there has definitely been a sea change of trust of the media and where people are getting the information. You have more people viewing Joe Rogan and other type of podcasts than you have them watching World News Tonight. Kidding you not.
Well, I take a look. We're going to end on that, but you're exactly right. And you know who's running for the hills? ABC, CBS, and NBC. They don't know what to do, and it's because they've discredited themselves. It's their own mess that they've made. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, Rebecca. That was great stuff. Rebecca Walser, Walser Wealth Management down in Tampa, Florida. All right.